This is going to be a video response for Alex. I hope I can call you Alex. I think that's okay. Thank you for your video. I made some notes, so I'll probably just touch upon what you said one by one. I think that's the best way to go about this. Concerning challenging the system with a gift to which it cannot reply but with its own collapse, you ask, what is the nature of the hyperreality that surrounds us? And suppose we give it that gift, it will collapse the system. Can we challenge it with an answer that might entail some collapse? You propose to challenge the system using reason, so you look at the system point blank. First of all, I think if you're going to make the system collapse, you're going to have to cause a system-wide collapse. An answer that might entail some collapse, I don't think some collapse is going to do it, because this is a very, very deep problem, I think. In a sense that, look at it as though it were the internet. Like if you're going to destroy some computer terminal, it's not going to be a big deal because internet is still going to be around. So I think that if you're going to challenge the system using the philosophy we have right now, which kind of wants to challenge the system from within its own perimeters, it wants to destroy the system from inside out, I don't think that's going to work. I kind of agree with Zizek on this point, where he tries to hammer on the fact that we shouldn't be trying to get like capitalism with a human face or anything. We should be trying to destroy capitalism totally, and supplant it with a different system. Can we use politics to do this? I don't think we can anymore. Can we use violence? I don't think we can. Violence and politics both are means that the current system uses to keep its own structure in place. Yeah, all our interactions do seem to be a bit staged. Like you said, like here's the books again, behind me again, there's a poster, even though I put up the poster a long time, it doesn't belong there anymore. You kind of try to defend yourself from this thing, well, I try to, where what you look like and what surrounds you tells you who you are, basically. Now, I don't think you can kind of sum me up as a guy that has some books, a Desperate Ray poster, and there's the Manhattan skyline on the background. I don't think that's me. In the same way, let me see. To go back to Zizek again, this connects a bit to the Matrix as well. Zizek says that this image is reality for most people. That it is the real world. The real world is the world of images. And if you're gonna use that example, like cars, for example. Like a car is functionally supposed to be a machine that brings you from A to B. Now, anybody that's gonna say in this time that a car is simply what it is functionally, I mean, that is a naive person, because a car is not just there to bring you from A to B. A car says something about you. I kind of think that like what a car is kind of like centers around the question what the car is not, but what the car implies. So what the car is hypothetically is much more important than what the car actually is. Now, to talk about money, probably money was originally a means to trade, whereas today it's obviously not anymore just something used to trade, but it kind of is a means to show that you control a certain amount of power over something, or that you are in a certain manner powerless, which is to say that as a normal worker, I might be able to afford like groceries, but I'm not going to be able to afford that expensive car. So if you're going to say that like money has a value, like €5, €5, that doesn't say anything. You have to look at what you can do with the money. What is the value of the money in relation to the system in which it is applied? Then in relation to what I said about impossible exchange, you go on to say that ideals are not actually there. Justice is something that is an ideal, but there is no justice in reality. They are merely examples of what we aim at. I would like to reverse this and say that, as Baudrillard says, that present-day examples of justice attempt to hide the fact that there is no justice to begin with. So we desperately try to stage this world in which there is no form of injustice, while we all know that the world is fundamentally unjust, and it can be something easy to something complex, like cops catching the good guys in the media, scandals. I mean, Baudrillard gives the wonderful example of the Watergate scandal, but that's already touched upon my last video. And I don't think like this implies some kind of like relative position. Simply implies that we are desperately trying to hide that the world is fundamentally unjust. Then to go on to the hyperreality of the money system, you suggest what is hyperreal about money is marketing, so the way in which we market products. Now, here I would like to propose that we think in the way that Japanese and French philosophers have been thinking since Heidegger, where we don't start from what is there, but we try to start from what is not there, from nothingness. So rather than giving an essence to something to say that money has this and this value, we actually make money valueless, but we look at what money does in relation to other things. So money doesn't have value. If anything, especially in a hyperreal, I mean, money doesn't have value, but obviously within the hyperreal system, well, that is the fact that we're trying to hide, that it doesn't have value at all. But everybody wants to think that it has value because that is the way the system functions. Now, in this way, money seduces people to think that they have some kind of power, because power is in itself also, as like money, a thing that needs structures of mostly hierarchy. So it's a system that works only with relations. There is no focal point. So the only thing you can do with your money is exactly that, to establish your position within the system of objects. In this sense, especially in our world, the only way you're going to affirm a position is by consumption, and money implies this consumption. You produce something, you get money to get it and to do it, and then the whole idea of having money is that you're going to spend it again. Now, making something center around what it is not does not imply that it is fundamentally unreal. There are many examples of this. I think one of the best arguments is probably God. I mean, Baudrillard said, not Baudrillard, but Baudrillard said this, that God is probably the only being in the universe that doesn't have to exist to exert its power, to have an influence. And the same thing, money doesn't need to have value to have grave implications to what we're doing. War, as Baudrillard wants to say, like war doesn't have to be real for there to be real victims. I mean, dead people are going to be dead people. And it's sad that they have to die for something that is fundamentally unreal. The hyperreal, something that is hyperreal is not unreal, it's just reality pushed beyond its borders in such a way that it transforms usually into the exact opposite of what it is originally. Um, I would kind of like to say that hyperreality is probably a system of relations with an imaginary point of reference. But the whole thing with hyperreality is that we have lost that original reference in such a way that we cannot even know anymore if there was a fundamental reality to begin with. Like we're kind of like left with traces of a blown up planet and like all the cosmic garbage is there to suggest that there was a planet there, but the planet is not anymore there. Can we say that there was a planet there? We can't, because we can't, prove it 100%. And originally, when people were still living in a religious world, things were a bit, could you say, easier, more basic. Basically, everybody knew that there was being referred to something that didn't exist, to God. God never replied. We had to kind of construct a world in which, there were miracles and everything was nice. And while God only replied with silence, the hyperreal system is actually far more profound in that it feeds back to us what we put into it. Many present-day thinkers will kind of have a problem with Baudrillard because, like, how are we gonna even practically apply his philosophy? But that's the whole thing. Like, hyperreality has pushed reality or something, or what is left of it, beyond its borders to such an extent that it is no longer even practically usable. Like everything you try to do immediately collapses onto itself and becomes something very different from what it originally was meant to be. For example, today, there's a common argument, like people will say, the church is bad, so God doesn't exist. So you have like a church, the whole establishment of religion only causes people to become atheists rather than causing people to be theists. That's the whole point of religion, right? And the whole thing with money is that it's supposed to create power and wealth, and all that is being produced today is more debt. Everybody knows that, like, many countries are already bankrupt. Why aren't they dead yet? Basically because money has no value. It doesn't matter how much debt the Americans have. It doesn't matter at all. They can just have it. It has no value anyway. And then we kind of stage like, oh my God, no, there's no money, but it's not going to mean anything. And like means of communications, only cause there to be no communication left at all. You cannot directly reply to me in this, in this way. You kind of want, YouTube is really something that has supplanted probably the priest. You just sit in front of your laptop and you just, listen to whatever you want, whatever your religion is. Zizek talks about this, like you have coffee without caffeine. You do sex with a condom, so you're not going to get pregnant anyway. There's many examples. Everything's been pushed so far, it's become totally irrational. There's no way to predict anymore what the next thing is going to be. I kind of see I became too fanatical about this again. I'll just leave it at this. I have more to say, but I'll probably leave with, if you're going to do anything against the system, it's just going to absorb it and feed it back to us in some consumption good or something. So to answer the question, is there a gift that will make the system collapse because there's no other response? I think that it was a rhetorical, maybe it was just a rhetorical question by Baudrillard, and the answer is no. There's no gift.